Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Lots that is breaking this morning and this week. We have the very latest with regard to that Ukraine war leaker, what he was charged with, and also updates on the media witch hunt against him. So we will get into all of that. Also, shots fired, more shots fired between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. This comes as DeSantis signs a relatively extreme 6-week abortion ban into law down in Florida. What will that mean for him and his electoral chances? Justice Thomas, new revelations this morning and over the weekend about additional ethics violations. I think the very latest is now he's saying he's going to have to amend his financial disclosures, so we'll give you all of those details. Renewed calls for Dianne Feinstein to retire. And Ro Khanna, who kind of, he's a fellow Californian. He kind of led the charge in being honest about, hey, maybe she should step aside since she literally can't do her job. Some real backbiting and nasty quotes about him in the press. Pelosi sort of insinuating he's sexist, others doing the same. So we will give you all of those details. And the Fox News Dominion trial was supposed to start this morning. It has now been pushed back a day till tomorrow because it looks like Fox News is trying to settle before this thing ever goes to trial.
Yeah, they are very afraid.
I am a little surprised they didn't make a harder push for a settlement before we get to that point. But anyway, we'll get into all of those details as well. Before we do any of that, though, Spotify video still out there for you guys.
That's right. It's still available for everybody. Breaking Point's premium subscribers. Everybody's been taking advantage of it, or at least a lot of people have. So go ahead and sign up if you want to be able to watch the full show on Spotify, as well as the unlisted full show on YouTube that we provide to all of our subscribers. You guys are really helping us out as we are scaling up, building the new studio. It's been quite a journey, and we will be able to show it to everybody. So I'm very excited to show them that.
It's beautiful, guys.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is beautiful. I can't wait for it to be here.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. Let's start with the Pentagon leaker. So Krystal and I both pulled some extra duty over the last couple of days to bring you guys the breaking news updates. We have the official charges against Jake Tahara, so let's go ahead and put that up there on the screen. He was officially charged with 2 separate counts of unauthorized retention and transmission of national defense information and unauthorized removal and retention of classified documents or material. Now, keep in mind, these are just the first charges that were made against Tahara. He's the 21-year-old Massachusetts Air National Guardsman who has been charged here with leaking that classified information over the course of an entire year on his private Discord server with a bunch of his, I guess, shitposting gaming gun friends is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So what does that tell us? Well, it's a holding charge. One of the most important things to understand is that every document that Tahara actually distributed is technically, could carry its own count. Now, one of the numbers that I have heard so far is that the Washington Post is in possession of the most amount of the documents that they got from one of the original people on the server. That's about 303 documents. Each of those could carry a case up to 10 years. So, that's possible, like the most 3,000 years. Also, from what I've been able to understand, Tahara, while he was an Air National Guardsman, he was actually called up to active duty at the time, so could face separate charges as for acting in this capacity while in active duty. That also explains why he had the top secret security clearance as to be able to access some of these documents. That, of course, is also a big question. How does a 21-year-old even have access to this? Turns out they gave him the access, and he can just pull it off the classified internet. There are, of course, a lot of questions about how exactly a guy like this can, because if we look at the pictures, he not only was searching for stuff that had nothing to do with his job, he was taking it, like downloading it basically onto his work PC, printing it out, and then taking those docs home, and then taking photos with a DSLR camera, which is not, and then presumably, I don't know, either shredding it or something. So I didn't even know it was that easy to print. And then he did it for over a year, Krystal, since February of 2022 is when he started.
Yeah, because that's when you have that high level of top secret clearance. Yeah. You're supposed to only access things on a need-to-know basis. It's not like you get that clearance and then it just opens up the whole world of whatever documents have that level of classification. But, apparently he was able to access basically whatever he wanted with that clearance. And frankly, I'm glad that he was able to, because I think we learned a lot from what he was able to reveal.
Yeah.
I asked our friend Bradley Moss about the initial charges, and to back up what you were saying, Saagar, he said, I think this will be supplemented with additional charges. This was, in my view, an arrest him now and neutralize the threat step in his words.
Yeah.
They will almost certainly supplement as they iron out the full details of the records he leaked. They have to separate the actual records versus ones that appear doctored by third parties. So these were the charges that they had ready to go, sort of locked in, airtight, and that'll give them time while he's being held to flesh out, exactly the full extent of what they are likely to charge him with.
Correct. And so this has ignited a big debate online, which I actually do think is an interesting one to weigh in on. As you said, yeah, it was good for us. At the same time, like, listen, he made an oath. He said he wasn't going to do it, and he did it. So this is one of those, like, is he a hero or not? And I think it all comes down to motivation, about the capacity that he was, and also just to assess the information on its face as opposed to him. Those are two actually kind of separate debates. Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of ignited this. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. She puts this out. Jake Tejera is a white male Christian and anti-war. That makes him an enemy to the Biden regime. He told the truth about troops being on the ground in Ukraine and a lot more. Ask yourself, who is the real enemy? A young, low-level National Guardsman, or the administration that is waging war in Ukraine, a non-NATO nation, against nuclear Russia without war powers? So this, of course, ignited just full-scale discourse. Krystal, everyone was calling her celebrating a traitor, saying she was wrong for celebrating him as a hero. Lindsey Graham joining several of his other colleagues and fully denouncing Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here's what he had to say.
Yes, the system failed. This is a major failure. And those who are trying to sugarcoat this on the right, you cannot allow a single individual of the military intelligence community to leak classified information because they disagree with policy. I don't know what led to this airman's actions, but he's done a lot of damage to our standing. What they're suggesting will destroy America's ability to defend itself. That it's okay to release classified information based on your political views, that the ends justify the means. It is not okay. If you're a member of the military intelligence community and you disagree with American policy and you think you're going to be okay when it comes to leaking classified information, you're going to go to jail.
So that's the full scope of the debate. A lot of Democrats and media figures also joining their condemnation of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I'm trying to put this in two separate categories, which is like, look, once again, dude broke the law, no question about it. Also in terms of his motivation, from what we can see here, let's put this up there on the screen from the Washington Post. He was called the new digital generation insider threat, aka Gen Z, the inevitable emergence of a class of people who seek not to cause political chaos, but rather to live life online apparently as they can, with little regard to rules that they consider to be old-fashioned or outdated. I basically think anybody who grew up on the internet qualifies for that.
It's now a threat to
so,
national security.
Yeah, I guess I'm also, I mean, in some ways, a threat to national security.
Fair.
So if you look also from within the profiles, he would get upset that people were not reacting inside the group. He's like, guys, I'm not going to keep posting classified information if you're not going to give me the reaction that I want. So look, he didn't have a principled motivation. Now, okay, that's fine. So I think like Snowden and Daniel Ellsberg had genuine political motivations to expose lies and fall much more in the ideological category where I think debating whether the individual was a hero or not is actually a legitimate conversation. Here, where people are trying to go after him, like, look, there's no question about it, he certainly broke the law. What bothers me, Krystal, is that the entire discussion is around the individual, Jake Tejera, and not around the documents themselves and what he exposed, to the point where I'm like, I don't really care about this guy. I even think the debate around this guy is almost foolish. We should talk about like long-range weapons to Zelensky and U.S. Special Forces on the ground in Ukraine.
Yeah,
so I'm curious
the
what you
debate
think
about him and whether or not he is a whistleblower, whether or not he's a hero, it's almost like a philosophical debate, which I do actually find interesting to think through, and I'll get to my thoughts on that in a moment. I mean, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet is stupid because this is conservative identity politics peak, where it's about, oh, he's white, male, and Christian, and that's why the state's going after it. Please, please. I mean, reality winner, right? Julia, it doesn't matter whether you're white, male, Christian, black, white, brown, purple, yellow, gray. It doesn't matter. If you embarrass the state, they're going to throw the book at you. They will build the jail on top of you. And it's important to keep in mind here, too, there are classified leaks authorized by the Pentagon to the press all the time. Do those people go to prison? No. Is Joe Biden going to go to prison for mishandling classified documents? No, he's not. Is Trump? Maybe, possibly. We'll see what happens with that one. But it is very selective who they decide to go after. If it is an unauthorized leak that embarrasses people in power, they will build the jail on top of you. That's the core point. To put out these white men, this is just a complete distraction from what the actual issue is. Lindsey Graham, obviously, you know, they always, whenever any of these revelations come, oh, this is a dire threat to our national security, this is going to destroy our ability to protect ourselves. That, with all of the revelations that we have had from Assange, Snowden, going back to Daniel Ellsberg, that has never been the case. They always oversell how damaging the leaks are. And they already, like, to me, some of the things that were revealed were incredibly important, incredibly revelatory, showed the way that the government at best has been misleading us and really more directly has been lying to us about the state of the war and how our allies feel about it and whether or not we have men on the ground, by the way. But they're trying to downplay this already and say, oh, this really wasn't any big deal. Like, it's fine. It's not going to have a big impact. So you can't have it both ways, where it's both this dire threat to national security, but also, oh, this is no big deal and we're not really particularly worried about it. So anyway, that's that piece. On whether or not he is a whistleblower, I actually don't know what I think about that, because he clearly didn't intend for these to be widely circulated.
He didn't.
He just wanted to, you know, I guess the best way you could put it is he wanted to, like, inform his group of buddies there, who he was kind of the leader of, bunch of young men, some of them at least underage, so these are like teenage boys in some instances. He wanted them to feel like they were in the know. He was trying to, like, educate them and bring them along and gain their trust. And so the fact that he didn't intend for it to have a larger political impact, perhaps that means he's not technically a whistleblower. Does that change the impact and the fact that we get to benefit from the knowledge that he sort of accidentally put out there in the world? No, of course it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that, to your point, Saagar, is the most important piece. Who he is, his motivations, how it got out there, all of that stuff, to me, is like way down the list from what is actually contained in the documents and what they actually mean. And the fact that in my view, having more transparency and more honest assessment of the war in Ukraine and what's going on there is nothing but a benefit to the American people. On the other hand, and we're about to get into this, you know, the way the media has reported on this, certainly their primary focus has been like outing the leaker and bringing him to justice, et cetera, et cetera. But they've also been very selective in the way that they've reported on these documents and have effectively done the work of the national security state by focusing on the pieces that will most play into the hands of people who want to push a more hawkish stance towards Ukraine.
That is why, once again, let me put out the call. Anybody who's got access to the extra docs, we have 53 of them. There are 250 more that appears only the Washington Post has. If you have any insight into those, please contact us and please let us know. Because what has come out from the reporting around the 53 documents was exactly as you said. Oh, the points that come out, oh my gosh, Ukraine's air defenses are in dire straits. And then writing it up in such a way where it's like, obviously the answer is that we should send more. Then we find a little thing in there that says that Ukraine attacked a Russian plane in Belarus. By the way, everybody's like, of course, Ukraine has the right to do so. Sure, but inside of our own U.S. intelligence agency assessment, they violated internal orders because they thought it would escalate tensions with Russia, which raises questions, how much control does Zelensky have? Number two, the Ukrainian president, who we are wiretapping because we don't trust, saying he wants longer range missiles so he can strike deeper inside of Russia. Not one mainstream media outlet wrote that up. Not one. In fact, the only framing around that—
so revealing.
Only framing around it was U.S. spying on Zelensky, not Zelensky wants long-range missiles to increase bombing on Russia. That's pretty freaking important. And then the level to which that we were going to plotting like coups essentially in Israel and South Korea to be like, hey guys, like all these plots and sophisticated schemes to try and force them to send weapons to Ukraine. You're like, this is insanity. So put all those things together. Like those are major stories. And even on the South Korean part, headline the Times and everybody else goes with is not about the plots to force them to send weapons. It's like U.S. spying on South Korea, which is like, it's one of those like, no shit.
Yeah,
you know,
they know that, we know that, everybody Korea just likes to have plausible deniability.
Ever since the WikiLeaks thing came out and we're like tapping Merkel's cell phone, if you're a US, whoever you are, if you're a world leader, you should assume your phone is tapped by the NSA. That's not the actual story here. The story is about what we were trying to do to those people and why we were gaining that information specifically so we could try and force them to do something, which one of the stories that came out of the docs is we were successful. We did force them to secretly send some hundreds of millions of dollars in ammunition to Ukraine. And by the way, that's a big problem for them in Seoul. They are not happy. The opposition party in South Korea is outraged about this. And the president, seems to be shrugging it off, but I can guarantee you, like, us creating political problems for him at home is a huge, huge story. So all of that has been ignored.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.